dame de be de bagaye ba chung ling ni de prase che ne yang da su la ni be du shu ji ten la ni bra zo de so che dan ra ji ga na ma de che dan na dan be che so je ba na vin dra che re gyo ba ni se ne tuen san li she dom de so an de dan de ge de ma tam je ba yong sen ge she le jong sen dong me me ba kong be pi jong te be ba re sen de so an sen de chang ju re yin be 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 se si san me bra ni ne ra do de chen lo se ba che be nam do ra ji ku me chen ba den de so an de chang be lo ji ni ji dong ju ta ra wa me ba ngi ju na bra da dong me gyu da je la da gyu shi me da nge bra sen de so an ye mo ye lo ge ji me dong shi ga de sha ya ni bu che le chi ge we nga zu sang bo me dong we xin yin pen zhe gang de so an so so ra de la nyam sha ne zhang ye so so ra je be shi ra ge je ro je so ju bra me je ba nge de tham bra je de so an chen bra cha la je shi je je lo me la da ba nan ye san je ra ne ge la jo ve lo je ge ve de nyo so ngo ra je de so an te dra yen de je le ge gang do yen de yen de je be cha shi je be lu sen de ba ga ma ba ye gong ba zong je shuo wu san ye je dang so ye shuo na me la chen zhe bang du da ne ye su da ge jun ye yi be sen na me ye zhuo la ben san ye zhu bra shu san ye je dang so ye shuo na me chen zhe bang du da ne ye su da ge jun ye yi be sen na me ye zhuo la ben san ye zhu bra shu san ye je dang so ye shuo na me chen zhe bang du da ne ye su da ge jun ye yi be sen na me ye zhuo la ben san ye zhu bra shu chang se wang dang qu jie xia ba jie so ye ra gu xie se wa ge wa zhu se da ge jie sa ba tang jie dang chen zhu jie mo sa xie bu ju zhu xie me do re ra we le xie nin de gen ba san ye xin dui me de bu wai ru ge nan da xin la jue bra shu sen jian nam ye san ba lo ye jie ra jie da shi zhuang de mo de ba ye qu ge gong lo gong du su voilà so da na ba ge sing de
Can you hear me?
我个是了，还是你那那个那个么子啥那个路那 저는 내가 이러저러 was about 나도 나도 담배 주인지는 이제 알아다라면 명지양보다 예전에 저쪽에서 저거나 상여서로 되지 대외 유저바 대단히 이제 담배 주인지는 이제 하나 주저도 이제나 되지 너무 잡아 어서다 되는 데 배셔야 잡아야 녀마도 되단데 이제 하야게다 로다는 이제 로모다는 매게나 로하고 일하게서 뭐 탐지하게도 나게 줘던도 손이 야도 기회에서 다음은 속이고 선배가 세계로 하고 공작이를 봐라 니션 봉지 초보신도 쓰버서 나랑에 야외도 주샤게서 저기에 뭐지 정감사배 민주당에서 의미랑 여러분을 좀 하죠 대신 굳이 리부된서 봐 유저라면 유버잖아데 시작하라 여러 경우에 제배도 되잖아 뭐 야외된 바구니에서 잡아 그 이름 뭐 살아서 반대도 지장을 그래서 아마 까먹어 이걸 이제 세계배를 이런 내좀 틀려고 이제 저런 언제 매니저나 내줘서 저 그변도 라면도 제 영어랑 시제가 저는 남자도 매게 서로 공들이랑 인바자 저저는 놈이고 저 유도지 샬로선 반에서 말은 제 나가 저를 매대 요라 그래 좀 요거는 죄송한데 고선도 영어로 자도 나와서 다 나도 말 아주 여기서도 참 뭐가를 무시 총세를 무시다 안 다르지
I'd like to wish the Chungse Rinpoche, the Chungse Boka Rinpoche, and Kempo Lododon Rinpoche, as well as all of the Kempos, lamas, and spiritual friends from the monasteries and nunneries, all of the students, and especially the nuns from the nunneries, and all of my Dharma friends, male and female, who are listening over the webcast. I'd like to wish you all my welcome this morning. So today is the last day of our Arya Kshema spring teachings. So for the last month, we have been speaking about the autobiographical verses, good deeds, and the praise search therapy, and we've had this wonderful opportunity. But I've not been able to teach the entire good deeds or teach it thoroughly as I'd originally planned. But I've had the opportunity to go into a certain degree of depth on the passages I've spoken about, so I'm very pleased about that. And so I am ready to teach the rest of these texts next year, and I also would like to do so. But of course, we cannot say definitely what time it will be next year, what the dates will be next year, but it'll probably be like this year after the Tibetan New Year. Now, the main purpose for teaching the liberation story of Mikyo Dorje this year for many years, I've hoped that all the listeners, and in particular all the lay and monastic followers of the Karma Kamsang and the monks and nun Shedra students, all will have a greater understanding, familiarity of Mikyo Dorje's examples and deeds of body, speech, and mind, rather than just an oral understanding of that. And so I've hoped that they will be able to by teaching these liberations of the body, speech, and mind, I think they'll have a better understanding and greater familiarity with this. And so this is what I've hoped for the teachings, and this has been my aims as well. Whether we are speaking about a Guru's liberation story, an ordinary person's biography, whichever it is, This shouldn't be just for the sake of learning about a particular individual's situation and way of thinking. Instead, we should try to have a mental image of the whole world at that time and understand what that person's situation was like, because I think it's important for us to try to develop this. But for someone like myself, I haven't really specifically studied history, and the bit of history I know is just a little bit of bits and pieces from here and there. It's not a complete understanding. But over many years, I've read many different writings by Lord Mikyo. This has been a great fortune, and because of that, I feel for myself that I feel close to the world in which Mikyo traveled. So I think that when I've taught this liberation story, I think that many of the events I've described have been like news to all of you, new situations. For me personally, I feel that teaching the liberation stories this year has helped me develop even greater faith than I had before through knowing the reasons, faith in the growing karmapas, and the eighth karmapa in particular. Particularly when we look at the situations that happened and events that happened during Mikyo Dorje's lifetime, there's a lot to see there. And so I have a particular feeling that comes from that. To give an example of this, when the eighth karmapa was first recognized, there's the east and the welcome tulus, and there's that big dispute over the tulkus. There were many amazing signs that accompanied his birth and so forth, but still, there were people who doubted whether and he was actually the karmapa. And because of his karma, in the end, Mikyo Dorje had to stay in the community that included the most people who had doubted him, which was the Great Encampment, with the title of Karmapa. And at that time, most of the people in the Gacha encampment had been supporters of the Western Tulku. And so Mikyo Dorje, they really had great doubts that Mikyo Dorje was actually the Karmapa. And in the end, he had to stay in that community of the most doubters. And even when they finally enthroned him, it was like a last resort for the leaders of the encampment. I really wondered, did they actually want to enthrone him? So at that time, because the Kampas who were in the same region from Mikyo Dorje said that he's the actual Karmapa, and so if you don't do it, we're going to attack you, they said. And they were so afraid that they enthroned him, as it is said, right? Even after he was enthroned, though, his greatest supporter in the encampment was Gyaltsab Rinpoche, but Gyaltsab Rinpoche suddenly passed away in a way that we suspect was murdered by poisoning. And there were many authentic karma constant gurus, such as Sanya Nyempa Rinpoche, but all they could do was offer the karmapa teachers. And there wasn't anyone who was actually able to change the situation within the encampment. So if we look at it from one perspective, from the time he was young, Mikyo Dorje had to live under other people's suspicions and disparagement and threats and criticism. And since he had to stay in that situation, if he were an ordinary individual, he would have become meek and weak-hearted, or someone who always only did whatever people told him to do. So it's a danger that would have happened to him. Or even of the worst situation, There was a danger he would have developed psychological problems, as that we talk about today, anxiety disorders. What's the other name? I don't remember that is. There's a danger he would have had psychological difficulties. But even though he was in that situation, in that environment, his ability to stand for himself was as firm as a mountain. His resolve was like unstoppable, like the flow of a river. Not only that, he also was able to tear down the iron walls of bias and cast off unnecessary material things and hoist the banner of teachings and practice, leaving a treasure of teaching and writing. And so the legacy he left is the largest and broadest legacy that left by any of the Gyawan Karmapas. And the traces of his deeds are unerasable. If you think of it like someone for myself, when I was young, I have no idea what was going on, but I was like recognized as being the incarnation of the Karmapa. And then I fell right into the middle of the huge controversy about who was the Karmapa's reincarnation. And put in a very difficult political situation, encountered many never-ending difficulties. So I think if you wonder what I've learned from teaching this liberation story of Mikyo Dorje, and what particular feeling and what particular things I've learned from looking at this in detail, well, for me, what the liberation story of Mikyo Dorje teaches is that regardless of whatever someone else says or what I think about whether I am in the or not the Karmapa, if I have a lot of thoughts and if I have a lot of hopes and fears in my mind, then I should not become a slave to those hopes and fears. Instead, I don't need to use up my entire life worrying about an empty title. And instead, I need to do what I can to arouse some pure motivations from my very heart. Even if all I can do is shoulder even a small portion of the burden of Buddhism and sentient beings, I think that I will not be mistaken in the path that I travel. And I think that Mikyo Dorje's life story gives evidence of that. So I feel that the liberation stories of the masters of the past, and in particular the life story of Mikyo Dorje, really show me a path forward in this life, a way in this lifetime. And so I think that's what it shows me. And so the teaching, this liberation story, is not just teaching it to you, but also looking inside myself and developing some experience or some understanding. And so I think that is what has happened with me. So for this reason, I feel that I'm extremely fortunate from the bottom of my heart. I think this. So next I would like to speak about the remaining points in this discussion of the Karma Gadri style that we spoke about yesterday. Now, when the Karma Gadri style was founded, there were two famous artists. One was Namkha Tashi and one was Yarto Tulku Pende. So these days, it's said that the Tulku Pende from Epo was an art teacher of Namkha Tashi. But it's not really well known whether he was a founder of the Gadri style. But when we look at the Light of the Great Sun by Rinchen Drupcha, which I quoted yesterday, on the liberation stories of the Karmapas and their hot stuns and other related histories, then I think we can get a clearer picture that at the time that the Karma Gadri style was established, that Tulku Pende was an important personage in the establishment of the style. Likewise, from the Golden Garden of Quadribiographies by Siddha Pema mentioned, there is a story about the latter Siddha Chugye Jason. There were two, and since the latter Chugye Jason. So what this says is that Siddha Chugye Jason had a temple built at Yermoche that had 150 columns, and it was a very large shrine room. And the foyer with 8 columns. And the murals in this temple were painted by Tulku Pende and Sebum Tende and others. And these depicted the 100 deeds, and they're based on descriptions by the Lord Chukyi Wangchuk. And so when you see the not all. No, many of the murals at the Karmagun Monastery, the Yermiche Monastery, are not left, but there are some left from the Lama Lakang. And we think that these were painted by Tulku Pende. And so I'd like to show them to you.
Also, tadi kama gombe lama lang dividi ningba di chadi gore. So
these are the old murals in the main shrine at Karma Monastery. So in 1918, when Kadositu was traveling to central Tibet, he stopped at Karma Monastery. Now, what he said at that time is that the shrine at Karma which had 56 columns and murals of the Jataka tales, they were in the old Gadrip style paintings. Now, these stories are the Jataka tales, but these are the murals in the Guru shrine room. So I think that we can hope that these are probably drawn by Tulku Pende. Also, there's a liberation story of the ninth Karmapa of the sixth Gyasa Rinpoche Japa Dundrup. Now, what it says in there is that after the ninth Karmapa passed away, the person who designed or who made the reliquary stupa of the eighth Karmapa was Tulku Pende. And also, what it says in the ninth, in the Golden Garland Kadribaifa is what it says during the time the previous Karma. There's no master artist, so the skilled artist from the Atach was Tulku Pende. And so during that time, there was no master artist. So Tulku Pende just criticized the other one, saying there's no really good monastery. And said in the future, they become a master that you don't need to worry about it. And so that's the reason why the 10th Karmapa Churin Dojo became a very fine artist. No, if we want to see a painting by the 9th Karmapa, a drawing of the paintings. See, these are the melodies of the Mahakala Puja. They have really nice little drawings, right? They're nice drawings, but if a skilled artist look at them, they're like a child's drawings. Of course, they're nice, but if an expert looked at them, they'd be like a child's drawings. And so he didn't really know how to draw, and so for that reason, Tulku Pende and so forth criticized him for this. And what this shows to us is that Tulku Pende was very familiar with the ninth Karmapa Wangchuk Dorje. Because he was so familiar, he was able to criticize them. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able. He was able to do this. Otherwise, he would not have dared criticize the ninth Karmapa. And so this shows that he was an artist who was really very close to the ninth Karmapa Wangchuk Dorje. Also, if you look at the autobiography of Sita Pension, it says there was a painting of the Eight Close Sons by Tulku Pende, and which he saw. And on the back there is, and there was there's a person who made the design. The sketch for it was so he had an attendant of his make a copy of that, and had some other artists color it in. And so we can no, we can see that, but we are not able to identify the. We are able to. Okay, so. So the original by Tulku Pende is one that we cannot see, but we do have the copy of this. So I'd like to show you that copy. So it's probably this. Of course, there are many different ones, but so this is
y podemos ver.
Yes, Spanish que jududa. Spanish que judu.
El original de Tulku Pende lo podemos ver. Tenemos la copia de este. Probablemente fue este. Hay muchos distintos.
스크린 맡은 것을 쉐어 스크린.
아?
쉐어 스크린 되는 마 맡는 것을 내가 직접.
아네. 야야. 제가 예세계 지균
팔도보살의 어떤 그 그림을 그리는 팔도보살 생화를 이렇게 그림 전통을 지금 방금 보여드린 이런 전통으로 발전을 해갔다는 겁니다.
Sorry ya, di sini ada kesalahan.
Jadi
suaranya berbau-bau.
Cái link của Việt Nam nó cũng bị lỗi.
얘네 양가 같이 오르베.
대신아. 나중에 픽셀.
오케이. Hola, so ta drin ju sane ta 공기 균전 대달이야 대체네 ene 야트 주고 팬디디 통마르 지코람 민지기 균지 이메일 마드바 치수 거디기 ene 쇠수반의 손데 ene 콩 거디기 좀 챙게 소유 체인바디 바지 셰마고 저지 렌도 삼정도 다 이면에 콩다 남가 저신이 버루려야 지금 리메기 캐셔면서 간제예매사데 콩나바니 처진 오마 만제 이미나 안다당 아주지 셰투야데 갈라하버로 차디 거래 이메이네야 안 콩기 리뮤 교재의 추세디 바지 남가 저시당 라보르버지 데르버지 맨로 삼정도 다트네 남가 저시 고슈아인 남가 저시디 지당게 제게바 미규도 저 코라노기 아니 얘가 주바 인세세 문진남으로 봤다 공 주바 다 공기 이제 가수다 지 남주로 비심지 든지 뭐 문진남이 민두산에 안 디균살 때네 수리기 규zel이야 장시 주바 이마 마세 버 아깝디두산에 거지기 쇠되베 qab려야지 우치 미네 제너버지 조지인바디 다 시험하고 버려 차디 하래 라바라도 콘레야 감상 자와야 세네 지 투지 첨부 나체 지 리시 개 첨부 망부지기 에너지 소개다 지 골라 당게 데 남과 뜻이 거예바디 세버를 차리 어레 배차샤비나 감상 신진 나와 주시 지면 나로래야 샤마랑 아베 남타 그 가르송 알았잖아 샤마랑 아베 떨롱래야 페베 겁래야 람쇼래야 팡모즈세야 들래야 페브레스 텔레야 양진니니기 스탕섬을 야나기 주문닝버지 주문닝버지라 데네 에네 멘탕베기 슈샤베기 똠베기 제베주무 지 케바르도 파바지 요레스 어디 케바르도 파바 델리 시샤제네 남과 저실래 닌자와지 저구여 제제 깐낭 깐낭바든시 남과 저시 지네 아니 디기 남과 저시기 가서에 지샤베기 세단디 길샴 드니 다디 예외래야 지 상계의 제바 중이래야 되바 제샤베기 되베 세당 다는 신기 상계의 재민기 연대 대화도 민비기 연대에서 된베기 책디서 아니 더럽게 강래야 다르게 강래야 다르게 전 강래야 설기 이게 지니 아니 세상의 예외니라 잡아야 봐 진짜虽那么的送多제장공 당부 홍래야 당부지 거지마 세고 난겐데 做什么工作
So the first person who had him start the Gaudi style was Shama Kunchi Yanlak, and the Shama Rinpoche also had him many paintings. So I think he must have been very close to the ninth to the fifth Shama. Also, the biography of the ninth Karmapa by Gyaltsab Drapa Dunda wrote that in 1582 he went to the Serpo Chukangong, which later would become the residence of Gyaltsab Nimbu Rinpoche, and became the residence of many of the Gyaltsab Rinpoches. And the person who wrote the murals in that shrine was Tulku Nampa Tashi. Also, what it says in that biography, it says that in 1583, when the fifth Shamapa passed away, the reliquary stupa was made out of silver, and the person who supervised the construction of the reliquary stupa was Namkatashi. So that is recorded in the history. Likewise, when the ninth Karmapa Mongsha Dorje was young and studying the philosophical texts, they gathered many of the young students, intelligent people.
Esto está escrito en la historia.
다 구쇼스 라고
Y de la misma manera, cuando el noveno Karmapa
So the reason why he was called so he was included in the so he was called a kusho. Now this Tibetan word is meaning kuko. Now this is called this because he was someone who was in the reason. So he was called that because in the entourage of Kamap, it means near the Kamap. And so then he founded a monastery called the Kusho Omin Ling Monastery. And this was founded in 1591. And when he founded this, then Namkha Tashi was told to paint the tankas of the lineage master. So there are many different tankas. And at the time that he was told to do this, it took him 8 years to do all the paintings, and in 1599 he was able to make an offering of these lineage tankas of the unified lineage to the ninth Karmapa Mongsha Dorje. Now Kusho Omin Ling is today. So where is that these days? Today it's in the Shitse city in the Rinpoche district in the so that the remains of the monastery there, and within the remains of that monastery, there are still some portions of the murals that can be seen to this day. So I think it is important for us to research these murals. And the reason for this is that at the time, this was monastery Yung Ominling was built during the time of the initial establishment of the Karma Gadri style. So I think it's a way that if we want to know what the original characteristics of the Gadri style were like, we should look at that. So I'd like to show you a picture of the murals, of the remains of the murals from this monastery. Yun Take was, he said, this is the ruins of. It used to be a very elaborate monastery. Later it just became like a farmhouse. Now the farmhouse has even been torn down, and they're just all that is left are the walls, and there's no one who is really taking care of them. So the paintings are in danger of being destroyed and degrading. Likewise, there's a Lalung monastery in Lhojak. This Lalung monastery had murals of the ninth Karmapa surrounded by the Kaju gurus, and so these very clear. This is written by Namkha Tashi. I say they were in the Gari style, so they could have been written painted by either Namkha Tashi or Kunja Pende. It's perhaps they were done by another artist at the time of the ninth Karmapa. But these, I think it is important for us to also research these murals as well. So I'd like to show you these murals from the Halong Monastery in Lhojak. And so these are the main murals with Wangchuk Dorje in the middle. Now, recently, what we found, what has been recently discovered in recent times, are in Lhojak Nyige Monastery in Bhutan. And so this is where there's a branch of the Trungpa Monastery there. And so that's the Lhojak Nyide Monastery. That was the seat of Shamar Kunchik Yanla. The place where this monastery, and so that is place of the Kashit. So there are some old Tanka's paintings of the Kaju lineage, and Kata Singh described in his description of the place. He said that there are 25 paintings of the Kaju lineage masters in the old Gadri style written during the time of the Shama Rinpoche. And he describes the silk brocade frames and so forth around them. And so there are amazing drawings that were just had there's none that could compare to them. And so these paintings I think we can determine that these were probably done during the time of the fifth Shamar Rinpoche Inlag. And there's a good hope or a good chance that the artist was Namkha Tashi, because, as I mentioned, the person who directed the establishment of this was Kunja Yenlak, and because he also had Namkha Tashi paint many paintings, and so this kind of painting these paintings are probably among the oldest remaining paintings of the Karma Gadri studies. So these are like a really important family, the ancestral jewel of the Karma Gadri style. And so these are something that we need to research, and we need to, I think we need to study and research these paintings. And so I'd like to now show you the murals from the Nyide Monastery in Lhojak. So there are two of them here that I'd like to show you. Now the paintings are, it's like the coloration is discredited because during the Cultural Revolution they were hidden in a cave, and so they got wet, and so for that reason they've degraded somewhat. And so that's a discussion of Tulku Pende and Namkha Tashi, an introduction to these two great masters who established the Karma Gadri style. Now look what it says in the what it says in the Great Light of the Sun is that during the time of the 10th Karmapa studied art with full concerning from Trika and Lodrak in the tradition of Menlong, and he practiced that style in the first part of this. Later, he studied the Chinese styles and also the Kashmiri styles, and became a great artist who had no comparison in Tibet. Now, basically, what this is saying is that in Tibet, there was no one who was as skilled as him in poetry or art in Tibet. And that he said that he was someone who, he said that he was, what he said is he was someone who had pleased Avalokiteshvara, and he had come to this world primarily to draw paintings. So he drew paintings, he also sculpted. And it said that every day he made a new painting or a new image every single day, without missing any. So these days, many foreign scholars who are studying the 10th Karmapa say that the 10th Karmapa Chön Dorje was one of the greatest of all Tibetan artists, and one of the most skilled of them. And there are many of his paintings that we could show. But today, just for an example of this, I'd like to show you this one painting, one of his paintings showing the Buddha taming the Maras or subduing the Maras. Actually, next year, I think I can speak about the 10th Karmapa Chön Dorje and his paintings, but I think that is enough for today. Then in 1664, Gyalpo Rinchen Dömchen, whom I mentioned yesterday, was born. What he did, his primary did, is he wrote this text, the Great Light of the Sun, that is a commentary on the form. So this is one of the oldest texts on the Gaudi style that we have. It's about the proportions of deities. Now, among these descriptions of the proportions, there is an earliest ones were by Drogten Pampa student Sunam Weser or Jamyan Drakpa of Tsao Rongpa. And there's also the flower mounted by Yenda Junior and Rupe Raje. And there's also the mirror for viewing reflections by Tsongkhapa students Tashi Sutram, the wish-fulfilling jewel of proportions by Menla Dundrup, and then the proportions of the deities, the mirror that shows the sutras and tantras by Tsang Tana Rikad Tukapadan Lodra, the proportions by Taranata, the ocean of wealth creating images of body, speech, and mind by Taksan Lotsawa, and then also the Desi Sanya Jaso's text determining the proportions of deities. And also his great text on Dripat. Now this great painting, it said that there are actually two. There's one in U and one in Sang, but these days we only have the one in U. The great painting in Sang is probably missing. So this is a very old painting. This is probably the earliest, most elaborate of these such paintings. Later, there was many others. There was the designs of craftsmanship by Jyomar Geshe. So basically, when we look at so it's necessary for us to research all of these texts by these great masters of the path and to see how they flourished and understand their and see what their each individual features are. I think this is important for us to do. Now, there's an old tanka of the Gyatso Rinpoches done during the time of Gyatso Rinpoche. And I think this is probably done by Gyatso Rinchen Chodrok. And the reason why I think this is because he was a student of the sixth Gyatso Nobujundra. And so this is an old There are several old tomatoes of the several old paintings of the Gyatso, but this is the primary one is this one by Gyatso Nobu Sampa of the Gyatso Nobu Sampa. And so this I will show you now, the sixth Gyatso Rinpoche Nobu Sampa. So this is the Tanka of Gyatso Nobu Sampa. And I think this is probably written by Gelon Rijin Sampa. In any case, these are among the oldest paintings in the Kamagari style. Now, in the 17th century, to the end, there was during the lifetime of the third Kamakunga Tenzin, there was an artist named Chutashi. And he was one of the three Tashis, three great artists of the Gadri school. So he's one of these three Tashis. And he, on the description and the direction of Kunga Tenzin, he wrote a lineage talk as a Drupal Tashi of the Drupal Kaji lineage. So I'd like to show you the first of this, so the one of Vajradhara. And so this is by the artist Chutashi of Jechu, the first lineage tanka of Vajradhara from the Drupal Kaji lineage series by Chutashi. Then in the 18th century, there was Sita Pension, who was very well versed in all fields of knowledge. And in terms of artists, he had studied very thoroughly in the painting and so forth. And so he restored the previous Gadi styles, and he helped propagate it. And so he had a very great influence on this. So I didn't have a lot of time to speak about this today, so I cannot say much about that today. So next year, I should probably begin to research this from now so that I can present this all to you next year. And so I think that is enough for me today. So next, I would like the organizers of the Arya Kshema Spring Teachings have a letter to read. So I'd like to ask you to please read that letter now.
Om Delexo Gilji, the Sumgawa, Wingi Chilepa,
Auspicious. I prostrate to the omniscient Mikyo Dorje. We begin by paying great respects to the 8th Karmapa Mikyo Dorje. The nunneries in India, Nepal, and Bhutan would like to thank the Gyalwang Karmapa, Urgentune Dorje, for giving these teachings given over the webcast, as we have requested. And His Holiness accepted our invitation and taught these 2 texts, the autobiographical verses of Mikyo Dorje, Good Deeds, and the Praise Search Thoroughly. And for the last month, he has taught very clearly about these liberation stories, as well as the situation of the Great Encampment and related historical events. And so we would like to, as representatives of all the Kaju nunneries who have been listening over internet, would like to wish that His Holiness lives for a long time, and that he may, and that in order that he may be able to live, guide teachings to liberation, would like to make offerings of the mandala, body, speech, and mind. We would like to request His Holiness the Gyalwang Karmapa to continue to oversee the Arya Kshema Dharma gatherings as he has. And we'd like to request you to continue to propagate the teachings of the practice lineage of the Karma Kaju. Thank you. Now the mandala offering, as I said before, offering on a mandala, you can make the mandala offering as we recite the during the Ocean of Kaju songs, this Rain of Wisdom. And so during that time, if you do it during that, if we do it now as well as later, then we'll have to be doing it several times. So I think just a single time is enough. So I'd like to, as I've mentioned to the nunneries already. So now, we weren't able to hold the Arya Kshema Winter Dharma gathering, but as a substitute for it, we prepared to have these teachings on the autobiographical verses of Mikyo Dorje, and so this is organized by the nuns, and particularly those of the Palpam Yeshe Rabteng Ning. They have all taken the responsibility, and this teaching has now been completed very well in the beginning, middle, and end. And so I'd like to say make an auspicious connection with all of you. So I'd like to think that I'm very grateful and I feel very thankful to all of you, in particular Labada. Now, as I mentioned before, this year's teachings, the original plan was to finish the entire text, but I didn't finish it. And if I had just insisted on finishing, if I had not done it in detail, it wouldn't have worked out. So in the particular I don't have a particular lineage or that is, I don't have the longer reading transmission of either of these texts. If I could just give the transition, so I could give it as a transition. So for the time being, I think we just need to leave it here, and next year I will continue speaking about it. Likewise, in recent times, the feeling that I've had recently is that in the past times, we had the karmic gachen, that it didn't stay in one place, it went from place to place. To make connections with many people in various different related remote places. This is a method that was started by the previous Karmapas, and in these days, because of the technological advances in the world, it's not necessary to actually go to those places. We can go over the webcast and make connections with everyone all over the world. So if you're taking these times, the Garchen, the Great Encampment, is the website or the internet encampment. And so the internet encampment and doesn't need horses and pack animals and tents like we did before. These days, if you have a computer and a webcam, it's fine. So I think this is a really great opportunity. So from this year onward, I thought I shouldn't hide whatever my experiences and what I've understood. I shouldn't conceal them, but I should say teach as much as I can to you. And so, as I said the other day, I have the hope that we have a summer teaching. Now, we haven't been able to establish the dates, but once we have established the dates, then I will make an announcement to all of you. Likewise, in Chinese, I've thought that I should teach over the internet in Chinese, but I haven't been able to establish the dates. But the topic will probably be about the topic of mind training, or perhaps about the Vajrasplitta Sutra. But we haven't decided this in particular. In any case, normally, when I'm in India, I'm not able to go abroad, and the people from so there's no choice for the people from abroad but to come and see me. Likewise, when I was in India, the internet was not as good as it is now. But now the internet has really improved, and for that reason, if I can if I can teach you whatever I can over the internet, there's no reason for you to come and see me and to spend all of the money. And you can listen to the Dharma while staying comfortably in your own homes, and that's good, isn't that? And so I think this is also a profit for you. It's also beneficial for you. So I think for this reason, my hope is that I can teach more Dharma this year. Now I don't have much else to say. I'm a little bit tired myself. Yes, I can't think of anything to say. My mind has just gone empty, and I don't have anything to say. So I think it's better to just leave it here. We will have a 20-minute break, and then we will get together, and we will all come together again. We will recite the rain of wisdom, the ocean of Kaju songs.